and welcome to Google Partners Connect. We're broadcasting live from the Googleplex here in Mountain View, California. Thanks so much for joining. My name's Megan, and I'm a part of the Google Partners marketing team. Today, we have a great lineup of speakers here to talk to you about growing your business online. We'll also take a closer look at some of the strategies you can carry out with the partners in the room to make the most of your advertising budget. Before getting started, I wanted to call out a couple of things about the partners that are in the room with you. First of all, they're experts certified by Google, and they can help you plan and implement any of the solutions that we talk about today. Secondly, we'd love for you to interact with us throughout the broadcast. You can do so on Twitter using the hashtag PartnersConnect. Send in your questions and your feedback throughout the program. Now, I'd like to turn things over to Dennis Cardosa, who's a Director of Insights and Analytics here at Google. Dennis is joining us to speak about how today's B2B consumer is shopping online and how you can use Google to engage with those potential customers. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our partners and their clients who are participating in today's presentation. We really appreciate each of you taking the time out of your day to listen to us speak and learn how to use digital as a strategic asset when marketing to B2B buyers. I'll first cover important B2B professional trends to consider for your marketing, and then later my colleague Sarah is going to provide advice on how to improve your customer engagement. But before I get into the trends, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own B2B history. I started my career in semiconductor sales marketing, and I was doing a lot of things with trade publications, going to trade events, managing trade events, and doing partner marketing with a lot of our distributors. It was very different back then, and I'm dating myself, but there was not much of an online play. There were websites and a few things, but most of the things happened traditionally. Fast forward a little bit, I joined Google. I've been here over 14 years, and mostly B2B. And what I've seen over time has been enormous change in how professionals use the web over these years. Multiple devices, lots of different types of absorbing content have happened in ways that we couldn't imagine 10 years ago. So a couple of examples to highlight this that I can think about in my own observations. B2B industrial supply is one area where I've spent a lot of time. And these companies traditionally and still buy and sell through local offices and distributor offices. And now today, some of the top 10 players in their space are purely online. No more handshakes and contracts, it's all done via website, and they're making a lot of money doing that. Another one is B2B custom design. And these design firms were traditionally, and still are again, in physical spaces with design teams and print shops. And you would have to go in with your own designs or get logos created. And now today, there are plenty of companies, and we'll show one later on, that transact wholly online. You give them your files, you ask for what you want, and they can make it all happen via a website or through an app. And then finally, I think trade events, that's something that I came up doing quite a bit of, was all physical. And today now, there are many of these events that are both physical and virtual. They're hybrids. And then one that I think about quite a bit is E3. It's the Entertainment Software Association's event. This year, they had 69,000 attendees physically at their event, and it's an industry-only event. But by going virtual a few years ago, they've actually opened it up to millions more people. So this year, they had millions of people attending virtually in the industry, but then at the same time, they're also able to now open it up to people who eventually consume their products, which has really helped change the shape of what they do as far as marketing goes. So those are just a few examples that highlight how professionals spend more time online. And now we can discuss some of the trends that are going to be pertinent to you and what you should be doing. First thing is about this new business buyer. We commissioned research with ComScore, and the study is influencing the B2B journey to understand how the B2B buyer is evolving. First thing is that the new business buyer is now more curious than loyal. And we're seeing B2B professionals relying more on themselves. And it makes sense. Information now is ready at hand. They can get it anytime they want. And these are behaviors that we first saw with B2C buying online. And now it's true for B2B. And for many of the same reasons. And we'll discuss that in a short while. The study also found that when we asked B2B buyers how they researched, over 2/3 of the B2B buyers said they now prefer to research online on their own. And that's a very big deal. I think perhaps maybe more surprising is that the online influence is actually stretching into traditional research as well. As we start to look at this statistic, you see the hashtag in terms smarketing. The smarketing term here is just referring to the alignment between sales and marketing efforts and your teams, which are now critical due to digital. And the study that I mentioned from ComScore had an insight that only about half of B2B purchase information is seeking now is involving a sales rep. And that percentage is shrinking. And again, mentioning that the B2B buyers spending more time on their own doing the research. The implication to this is that regardless if a prospect uses a sales rep or not, online is vital in their journey. And each carries its own implications. So let's dig into that a bit further. For those that don't use a sales rep, roughly 7 out of 10 stated that online is the top influencer for them. And deterrents to working with a sales rep are the desire to avoid too many emails or calls, or simply because prospects are unfamiliar with a vendor. They just don't want to be intruded on too early in the process. And then the implication for you all as marketers is that you need to ensure that you're providing the information necessary to help these buyers in their purchase decision in a less intrusive way. If you hold back information, you risk losing that customer early in their consideration. Next, we can look at the online influencers that are actually using a sales rep. Let's keep in mind that over 50% of buyers still look to a sales rep for information. Motivations for working with a sales rep are for deeper product details or recommendations, as well as detailed pricing. Still, for those that use a sales rep, online still has value. It drove over 50% of the direct sales rep contact. And you can see here that direct digital interactions like email, contact and RFQ forms, and chat can be tracked and valued for your marketing, showing the connection directly to the sales team. But in addition, you can track and value your marketing interactions to assess how digital exposure drove calls or in-person interactions, conference visits, store visits. Digital gives you that capability, and that's something, again, that we can talk about more in detail, including the Q&A. The implications for this is that you need to complement your sales rep efforts with targeted campaigns, using robust tracking to make sales engagement more relevant and make a better experience for your customer. This additional data point is from Marketo, and it just emphasizes the marketing concept. There is a 67% increase in deals closed when sales and marketing are in sync and informing each other. This further emphasizes that being data-driven and combining data sources, you can move your business forward and drive results. It's also very good for your customers. Next, the new business buyer is demanding. A plethora of choices drives desire for more transparency and more control. As an example, let's look closer at B2B buying of hard goods online. These data points that you're seeing are from the U.S. Department of Commerce, which tracks e-commerce trends for consumers and professionals' purchasing habits. These numbers highlight that B2B e-commerce is massive. Did you know that B2B e-commerce is 6 times larger than B2C e-commerce in the US? It's true. And this will only grow as B2B e-commerce is also growing 2.5 times faster than traditional B2B e-commerce. That would be phone, catalog buying, and going to locations to make a purchase. Also, the percentage of total B2B e-commerce online is also astounding. You can see here at 32% versus 8% for B2C. So the key question, though, is why are B2B buyers going online more and more? This UPS Industrial Buying Dynamics study from 2017 highlights a few of the reasons why. As you can see, many of the reasons are the same as why B2C buying is moving more and more online. Concepts like free shipping, price transparency, wide selection are all very important reasons for the shift. It's also worth noting that quick response to order is up there. Being able to quickly find a product and secure it is critical. So, how can you use these insights to better engage B2B buyers? All of this research highlights how assisting the new business buyer in their journey is absolutely necessary. In fact, a study that Google conducted with eConsultancy resulted in 89% of leading marketers saying it's critical to their growth to anticipate customer needs, provide assistive experiences along that customer journey, and my colleague Sarah will offer suggestions on this in a short while. I'll add to these experiences that more and more are going to be powered by mobile devices. They are today and they will be ongoing. And this is driving the notion of now in B2B. And this gets to our final point, that the new business buyer is impatient. Mobile has really made it possible to research and decide any time of day, and then also get experiences that just evolve what people are doing online to make decisions. The graphic you see here is based on the Wall Street Journal Digital's Think Again event and publication. It highlights how the average person is spending more than half of the waking day on digital media. It's now the #1 activity that people do, more so than sleeping, and it plays a big role in B2B influencing as well. Breaking down that 11 hours, we can see a little deeper into the numbers and see that mobile web activity has massively increased. Mobile has had an outsized contribution to the 41% growth in time spent on digital in the last 5 years. As it pertains to B2B time spent, we see back and forth activity across devices. It's based on time, location, context. And if you think about it and how you might do your day, you might start your commute using your mobile device, checking the news, getting information, doing emails. Then as you get to work, you switch your device and start working on a laptop. We often see then from around lunchtime, the mobile device activity picks up, and again later in the day. Even at home, as they're getting information, mobile's playing a big role in the B2B decision maker's life and what they do every single day. So while more and more time is spent online, and growth is driven by mobile, what's been its impact? This data by Boston Consulting Group's marketer survey shows that mobile contributes or influences almost half of all revenue for B2B leading marketers. This is more than 3 times that of B2B marketers who haven't emphasized mobile as a key part of their strategy. So emphasizing mobile is no longer an option, it's a necessity. Mobile is often the early stage engagement for immediate information access. Mobile is often better at closing the loop as well, tracking the efficacy of your marketing. And if you think about the ComScore study, highlighting some of these things around email and going to store, these are all things that the mobile device does very well. To add to this, my own team and I have spent much of the past 2 years getting marketers to move their attribution model beyond last click, to better understand their media attribution and what it plays a role in doing. And so what we've seen with hundreds of customers moving to data-driven attribution is that overwhelmingly mobile gets more credit, and it makes sense as a result. It's more important in influencing the buying decision. People start doing their research on the mobile device, and when you give a fractional credit to the earlier process, your marketing will do better as a result as well. The ultimate question here now is, what and how do I do to improve my mobile effort? The key thing is to start with your customer. Different devices and contexts require different experiences. Calling back some of the reasons cited for B2B buyers moving online, how do you improve the sales experience without a salesperson present? Even look around. What's some of the better and best experiences you've come across that can inspire you with what you do in your marketing? Here are a few examples to highlight. Now, looking at these 3 examples, they are from the B2C world. They highlight innovation in putting more control literally in the hands of the buyer. Also, these changes are not just for disruptors or companies that are born mobile first. We are seeing traditional retailers and retailers of all sorts at the front of this change, leading the way. And this is changing the way people research, buy, and order goods. For example, on the left side, Alternative, they do eye prescriptions via smartphone. It's a startup company, lets you do vision tests from your computer or phone. You get a prescription, you can have a doctor review it online. You have no need to go to an optometrist for glasses or lenses. And all of this with a greater than 99% customer satisfaction. That's simply amazing. The next in the middle is Wayfair. Wayfair is completely reimagining shopping, so much so that they are providing more assistance through their app than they could in a physical store. The app allows you to position pieces of furniture to scale in your actual room so you can see how it fits, how the color looks in your actual physical space before buying. This is something that no store or sales rep can equal. And then finally on the right, you have Domino's. There are now over 15 ways to order a Domino's pizza without any human contact. As a result of these efforts, Domino's now receives more than 60% of their orders online, with more than half of those coming through mobile. It's a pretty amazing way to revolutionize a process that was mostly driven by phone call. Now, focusing on a brilliant B2B experience, we highlight how important it is to be useful. If brands generate a positive experience with their website, they're 8.5 times more likely to be added to the consideration set versus experiencing a negative website experience. Vistaprint here is an example of one that stands out with a clear products and pricing, an easy-to-add cart, and frictionless checkout experience. This is especially noteworthy for a set of products that are custom ordered. Traditionally, again, professionals needed to go to a design or print shop to get these sort of things done. Now Vistaprint's made it possible to get this done via mobile UX. And then finally, I want to emphasize the importance of being fast in your mobile experience. Our own Google Analytics data for nearly 4,000 mobile websites confirm that you can lose more than half of your site visitors if you take longer than 3 seconds to load your page. This again emphasizes the notion of now that mobile drives. So in summary, this is the new business buyer. She and he are now more curious, more demanding, and more impatient. I provided a few insights and examples on how to deal with those needs. And you will next receive a lot more great advice in the next segment. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dennis. It's really interesting to see how the growth in connectivity is having such an impact on how we behave as consumers, and especially for the online shopping experience. So we're about to move on to our next section, but before we do that, I wanted to highlight just a couple of things about the partners who are in the room with you. You're probably aware that they are Google partners, that they've received the Google Partner Badge, but you might be wondering what exactly that means. Well, it means a few things. So first of all, they've proven that they follow the best practices that are laid out by Google. They've also passed a comprehensive advertising exam, managed significant Google Ads investment, and have proven their ability to help businesses just like yours succeed online time and time again. So next up, we're going to have Sarah, who is a lead digital strategist with our Google Marketing Solutions team. She's going to provide some practical recommendations for making the most of your online advertising budget with Google Ads. So I'll hand it over to you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Megan. And thank you again, Dennis, for the industry trends and overview of the changing B2B industry. Fascinating stuff there. I'll walk you through what these changes mean for your business and how to best use strategy, implementation, and optimization to find the best solutions for your business. But first, let me tell you, B2B marketing is hard. I know this firsthand. Part of my career has been focused on the B2B side of lead gen, and here at Google, I'm working as a lead digital strategist specializing in business growth. Many of my largest clients are in the tech B2B space, so this stuff is my bread and butter. As B2B marketers, you have some of the toughest jobs in the world. Some challenges that we face: are we B2C or B2B? This can be a very blurry line. What about those long sales cycles? This is a high dollar purchase that we're talking about. So there's a large financial commitment, and the approval process can sometimes be painfully drawn out. What about this high competition? This space is definitely saturated, and consumers are comparison shopping. They're always trying to find the best deal available to them to meet their budgets. And finally, we know that this is very niche. A lot of times, these B2B products and services are so niche and solving such unique problems that it can be tough to figure out exactly where to find potential customers. So what can we do about this? I'm excited to show you how to turn those challenges into opportunities. It's about showing the right ad to the right person at exactly the right time. And this is precisely what a well-greased digital marketing strategy looks like. So let's take a closer look. But first, before diving into some of that, I want to touch on this topic that we heard Dennis mention a little bit earlier, and that's around understanding the age of assistance. And what do we mean by this age of assistance? So let me start out by saying that being assistive doesn't require the use of voice or digital assistants like the Google Home, and it doesn't require augmented reality either. Assistance is much broader than that. It's about helping people getting things done. This is an old idea with a very new opportunity today. It's about using digital to assist people throughout their daily lives rather than using digital solely to drive transactions. Great assistance requires anticipating consumer needs and delivering the right experience to the right person in the right moment. And ultimately, delivering these helpful, personal, and frictionless experiences starts with mobile. Users aren't simply interacting with your business on desktop. As we heard earlier, most of the waking hours are spent online and engaging with media. Assistance actions as cross-device companions to web and mobile app when people are on the go. So where do we begin with all of this? I encourage all of you to focus on one or two of your most critical business problems. We have heard them all, from maybe it's purchases, scheduling, we need branch finders, loyalty, retention, customer care. Identify the ones that are ultimately going to drive your business and have the largest impact overall. Once you've determined the appropriate marketing objective, you can then match with the right Google solution we offer. So maybe you've bucketed it into 3 separate groups. The first around driving intent, second, around leveraging data-driven solutions, or third, engaging with customers with dynamic responses. So let's take a look at this. Let's say you've decided on focusing intent-based actions. You want to drive purchases, or you want clients and customers to schedule with your business. Now, once you've determined your marketing goal, it's important we are able to measure it. Having the correct measurement in place will set the foundation for all things optimization. When thinking about measurement, there are two things you'll need to address. Ideally, you'll first onboard clients and actions to measure how to best measure those. Let's start by addressing the what. A common misconception in the B2B space is that mobile doesn't work. First, that's no longer true, and second, it's important to remember that searches start on mobile in the research phase. As we heard earlier, most consumers, most companies will first consult their mobile device before making a decision or a transaction later on. Then they'll move into the desktop conversion stage. But if an advertiser isn't there every step of the way, they're missing out on this nurturing phase. This is why it's so important to take into account cross-device conversions. As an advertiser, you'll want to track all the conversions of your ads campaign, including those that began on device or browser and end on another. By using the include cross-device conversion setting, you can include these conversions in your conversion column and factor them into your bid strategy and make sure we're capturing the full value of your ads. How many times have you been asked as a marketing manager, why are there only 15 demo requests last month? Why were there only 15 contact fill us forms last month? The truth of the matter is, as we talked about earlier, the sales cycle is really long. Currently, I'm working with a company who keeps telling me, Sarah, our leads look great, but we don't know if things are closing. Rarely will someone reach out to a sales team for their first time on a site. And did you know, by the way, that it takes on average 12 searches before a user actually converts? The solution here is to start tracking other conversion actions. We should really be tracking 3 different tiered buckets. Let's take a look. First, we have our macro conversions. This is your main, first, and foremost goal. Usually either the demo request, the purchase itself, or maybe a contact us form. Mid-level conversions are second. This is your secondary conversion goal, example like an ebook download or white paper, phone call. And then finally, it's important that we're tracking micro conversions. While these may not be your main KPI, they're still important KPIs because if someone is spending time on your site or has visited a number of pages, we can likely say that they have interest and that they're more valuable to us than someone who hasn't been to our site. Don't have lead conversion tools and resources? Then create them. This is imperative to your lead gen success. We've talked a lot about tracking. Well, how does all of this work? First, it's important to understand how to tag your site in order to track conversions. The best way to measure online conversions is to use tools that set cookies in the same domain as your site, known as first-party cookies. First-party cookies allow for easier integration with many Google products and simplifies tag measurement on your site. There are 3 different types of tags. Let's take a closer look at these. These tags should be placed site-wide on every page of your website to effectively measure and optimize your digital marketing investment. There are 3 options for site-wide tagging: the global site tag, which is the updated Google Ads conversion tag, Google Tag Manager, and Google Analytics, where you can even create SMART goals. We recommend site-wide tagging due to the 3 main benefits. The first is that it's future-proof. It adapts to changes. Site-wide tags are better equipped to handle with the measurement ecosystem. They benefit from the latest dynamic features and integration as they become available. By using the global site tag or Google Tag Manager across the entire site, you'll be able to benefit from the latest dynamic features and integrations as they become available, and will be better equipped to continue measuring conversions accurately. If browsers make changes in the way of handled cookies, you got it covered. Second, site-wide tags provide for more accurate conversion tracking. Using the global site tag or the Google Tag Manager sets new cookies on your website domain, which will store information about the ad clicks that brought a user to your site. This ensures that Google Ads can measure conversions more accurately. With the event tag, they specify which interactions with their website should be counted as conversion. And finally, the third reason why we recommend this is because it's fast and has easy integration with other Google products. The global site tag is not only used by Google Ads, but is also used by other products such as Google Analytics and Floodlight across the Google Marketing Platform advertising products. If you use these products, the global site tag makes websites implementations easier by providing a unified tagging experience. Also, unlike the legacy version of conversion tracking, GTag is an synchronous tagging library, which means that the browser will download the tag without blocking the rendering of your page's content. Finally, Google Tag Manager also allows easy deployment of any tag on a website without code changes. While we want to measure all conversions, of course, someone being on site for 15 minutes isn't worth as much to your business as someone who is requesting a demo. If you're going to track 3 buckets of conversion actions, that being the macro, mid-level, and micro actions, it's important to quantify how much each of these conversion actions is worth to your business, and then reflect those numbers in your conversion tracking valuation. Create a tiered valuation system. For instance, maybe someone requesting an ebook from your business is worth twice as much as someone who stayed on site for 10 or more minutes. Similarly, maybe someone who requests a demo is worth 4 times more than someone who requested an ebook. When creating conversion actions, make sure you're assigning values in the user interface. Gone are the days when we can just count on conversion actions. Think outside of the box and come up with new tools and resources for your users who aren't ready to make the demo request or fill out a contact form. And while we're on the topic of conversions and lead generation forms, let's go over lead gen form strategy. The truth of the matter is that long lead gen forms have low conversion rates. First name, last name, email, phone number, company name, website URL, number of employees. Okay, you get the picture. I can't tell you how many lead gen forms I see that include city, state, and zip code. If I tell you the zip code, can't you figure out my city and state? Barriers to fill out these forms hurt businesses. What's your biggest marketing challenge? ... These long, open-ended essay questions, these should be avoided as well. Let's take a look at an ideal landing page. I mean, wouldn't you feel more inclined to fill this form out? See how simple and clean this page is? That's it. Simplicity is key. Old school thinking, mobile responsive ads just don't cut it anymore. Better engagement with mobile dedicated sites than mobile responsive design. When it comes to landing pages, again, keep it simple and don't ask for too much information up front. But what about crafting the right messaging? Now, we've created 3 pillars around creative excellence, and when we use these best practices, advertisers see on average 5 to 15% increase in clicks, conversions, and click-through rates. So let's take a look at these 3 pillars from optimized ad rotation, 3 or more expanded text ads, and at least 3 ad extensions within your ads. Put your best ad forward. Leveraging Google's ad rotation settings to optimize your ads for clicks or conversions allows you to automatically show the creative that is projected to perform best. The optimize for clicks conversion ad rotation setting is fueled by Google's powerful machine learning models, which optimize toward clicks or conversions for each auction by considering all relevant context signals such as keyword, query, device, location, etc. If you're taking advantage of adding 3 or more expanded text ads into your ad groups, make them good, well thought out ones. Don't just create an ad that's virtually the same, one with an exclamation point and one with no exclamation point. In light of recent data security events, I was curious, so I Googled data breach and came up with this ad, which exactly capitalized on my feeling at the exact second I was searching. This was an ad well done. And now that you've created all of those great ads, don't just leave them without extensions. Remember, the more information you can provide, the better results you'll see. Here's a couple of extensions you can leverage. Maybe it's phone calls or site links. Take them directly to that form fill-out page. Maybe it's location extensions if you want to drive them to a physical store. Remember, again, the more information we provide up front, the better results we're going to see. Now that we've covered some of the intent-based goals, What if our goal is more around customer data? Let's take a look at how we can leverage Google's data-driven solutions to help with our business objectives. Focusing on retention or personalization, insert remarketing. Remarketing works wonders. Getting people back to site to convert is easy. Simply add a Google Analytics pixel on the site, and from here, you can create remarketing lists and analytics and import them directly into your Google Ads account. Now you can use these remarketing lists to leverage on the Google Display Network, YouTube, Gmail, and of course, search. A pro tip is to layer remarketing lists onto your search campaigns and then add a positive bid modifier for the list to really capitalize on returning visitors. What you're telling the system is, someone who has been to my site previously is really important to me and I want to get them back, so I'm willing to pay a little extra for the click, but in the long run, this is going to mean bigger ROI for your business. Second, Google wanted to answer the question, how can we evolve remarketing to incorporate first-party data? Insert customer match. Customer match lets you show your ads to consumers based on email addresses that you share with Google. All of those great lead generation tools and resources that you're going to create are going to get you lots of email addresses. Hyper-targeting, this functionality allows you to target not only those audiences that are already familiar with your brand, but also similar users, so you can be more efficient in reaching new audiences. And this is easy. First, upload the first-party data into the Google Ads account as an audience list. Lists are uploaded via a privacy-safe, hashed mentioned, 1,000 matched emails. Google Ads matches your email address to the Google accounts that we have available. Once we create your audience list, we discard all data. You then target or exclude your new audience list across devices and channels to improve reach of your search, Gmail, and YouTube campaigns. Finally, Google Ads can generate similar audience lists from your original email lists when eligible, and this is available on Gmail and YouTube. An additional pro tip, layer customer match positive bid modifiers onto your search campaigns for better results. Finally, let's take a look at dynamic response and delivering content that is always relevant to the user. But first, let's take a look at a couple of Google search queries. Did you know that the way that we search is changing? For example, I'm a huge foodie, so yesterday I might have searched San Francisco restaurant reviews, very short, very syntax language. But today, I'm getting more comfortable using natural language, and your customers are too. So they might search something like, where can I get a good lunch around here? Notice the difference? How do we approach these changes? Let me ask you something. Who thinks they're bidding on every single relevant keyword already? That's right. I didn't see any hands raised. With over 3.5 billion searches per day and 15% of all of these searches brand new on Google, we know that there's potentially things slipping through the cracks. So what do we do about this? Well, I want to introduce you to dynamic search ads. Dynamic search ads specify pages on your site using Google's crawling system and will be able to index everything that you have on your page. All you need to do is specify which pages you want to target, set a budget, and an ad creative template. A user then types a query into Google, and if that keyword is not currently being bid on in your account, in one of your traditional search campaigns, Google finds the page on your site that best matches that query. On top of that, an ad line is dynamically generated, and the user is brought right to the exact page. Pretty cool, huh? Let's recap what we've covered. Remember, the customer is in the driver's seat. Remember to take full advantage of Google's data-driven solutions. And finally, understand that's how users engage with search is changing. Google's machine learning solutions help you stay on top of these changes. Again, I just want to highlight, make sure to measure all of your conversions. Creative excellence. Take advantage of some of our best solutions like customer match and remarketing. And finally, tap into dynamic search ads and different match types. We've covered a lot of ground in the past hour, and I realize it might be overwhelming to think about all of the changes that are occurring and all the opportunities that these changes bring. And ultimately, this brings me to my final recommendation. Get the help you need from a Google partner. Thank you very much for being with me today, and I'll pass it back to our host.
Thanks so much, Sarah, for highlighting some of the opportunities that partners can take advantage of right away. So next up, we're going to have our live Q&A session, and I want to encourage you to continue sending in your questions using the hashtag PartnersConnect on Twitter. You have a chance to ask some questions of our experts, so definitely take advantage of that. We're going to welcome Dennis back in and get started with the Q&A. So our first question was sent in by Rick, who's tuning in from Boston. Rick is wanting to know, should I be allocating more of my budget to mobile ads?
Well, as we mentioned, Rick, we know that users are spending the majority of their time engaging with media content via mobile. So, of course, we should be allocating appropriate budgets to mobile, but also we want to make sure that we have those bid adjustments there so that we can measure the different traffic. Dennis, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, excuse me, you can actually look at what the distribution is, using trending tools that are built into the front end, that you can see mobile versus desktop and how much that might be. And I mentioned earlier attribution. How you're attributing your media also will matter, and your optimization of the media will also matter on how you attribute. So mobile usually, again, has more value when you look at it earlier on when you're trying to influence people.
Great. Our next question was sent in by Dan, who is asking, what is the best way for my company to use the B2B mobile space?
So I think, thinking about how your customers use, the mobile space, surveying them even, we have tools for that as well, allows you to think about what you can evolve and what sort of information are they looking for. Again, what are the things that they're doing on mobile that give you some sense of intent? What's the context that they're looking for? What kinds of information are they seeking? And then providing that experience for them. And I think that's the way to think about it. Start with the customer, see what they're trying to get to, and then optimize to that.
Okay, next question is sent in from Heather, who is actually located in Dallas. And Heather's asking, how can my B2B business best use Google to prepare for the upcoming holiday season?
Yes, so I would say, again, the theme of all of this is around mobile. We want to make sure that you're taking into account how much users are interacting with their mobile devices during this research phase. And we know there's going to be a large spike during the holiday season. I would also recommend taking a look at how you performed last year and seeing any year-over-year changes in your account. From there, you can make proper bid adjustments. Another thing that I would recommend is speed. It's really important that users come to our site and mobile load times are fast. If you don't have fast mobile load times, remember to consult one of your Google partners and they'll walk you through ways to optimize your mobile landing page.
Yeah, I'll only add that another thing again is the seasonality of things. You might find that behaviors change, and that would be another thing to optimize for. So if holiday is one of those moments that really matter to you and you see a lot more business, how that volume increases, how much faster businesses might transact with you are things you should consider. So you might need to make some budget adjustments and bid adjustments over a very short window of time that you wouldn't do the rest of the year. So keep that in mind as well.
Great. So Bob, who is tuning in from New York, wants to know, given long lead times, are there any best times to advertise on Google for my B2B company?
I can take that.
Yeah, sure.
So long lead times are always tricky. I think number one, making sure that your tracking is set up to account for that. There are defaults built into tracking, number of days, 30 days. So you might want to make adjustments to that. So if you're a business that has greater than 30 days of events and engagements before some sort of action's taken, extend your tracking to account for that. And then from there, I think you want to think about over that time window, if you can get to sort of a session to user level of analysis, thinking about what are the things that people are doing over that period of time and optimizing your campaigns, even designing them to address each of those different needs over the course of, let's say, a 30, 40, 50, 60-day window.
Awesome. So Stephen from Austin is asking, for remarketing, what's the best way to find users who've already shown an interest in my product?
I can touch on a few of these things. So for remarketing, a couple of things I would suggest are creating different lists. One of the best lists you can create for people who have already shown interest is if they've put items into a cart and then abandoned that cart. You can then remarket to those users with that cart abandoner or non-converter list. From there, in Google Analytics, you can set very specific remarketing from time spent on certain sites or how many pages they engaged with or anything of the product solutions. I want to add anything to those types of lists?
I think that's a good start. And then as you start to see the engagements change and the value come from that, you can continue to iterate and find new events, new types of opportunities. And then as Sarah was mentioning, micro conversions. There might be multiple other things that give you an idea of how to bring someone along to ultimately the sort of transaction that you're looking for.
Awesome. Yeah. What's great about so many of these solutions is that there are these best practices, but so much of it is able to be customized for you and your specific questions and problems. And that's what the partners in the room, again, are there to help you with, figuring out how to kind of make these recommendations your own. Moving on to the next question, Andrew is asking, considering the long sales cycle of a B2B buyer, how should marketers be using the relatively short look and back window inside Google Analytics attribution models?
So the short look in Google attribution models, I think you want to look at the overall process. Again, the time frame that you use for tracking should be as long as you need it to be, but then you can also use funnels and goals to look at very specific events that are happening, even by device or by user, and see what happens earlier in the process, maybe towards the middle and then towards the end. And then as you're using that in your attribution, there are actually directly in Google Analytics multiple attribution models that you can compare side by side. So the default being last click, but you can also look at other rules-based models and see what happens when I use one versus the other, and how does that optimize towards different types of events I'm having over this nurture relationship, if we want to call it that, with the customer. So short events can add to multiple events leading to a larger transaction and engagement process with your customer. And you just want to pick the model that works best for you and pay attention to those different types of interactions that you have, and then optimize to those.
Great. So we actually have two questions sent in by Alt Media. So we'll cover the first one. Is it appropriate to create remarketing lists from both analytics and ads? Are different users going to be in each of those lists?
Yeah. So it can help you to do both. My feeling is if you have analytics and it's linked to your Google Ads accounts, it's going to give you more options. You can do all the things that you can do in Google Ads plus a lot more. And innate into Google Analytics are at least 300 more signals that have to do more with just site interaction, which can be immensely even more useful. So you know what they did with the ad, they clicked and then they moved on, you know what ad it was, but then what happened when they got to your site? Where did they go? What did they do? Those sort of behaviors should be added in, and it just adds more context. It's even more of a qualifying event that you can use in different ways. There might be certain pages that matter more to you than others, especially if you have a site that serves for both customer service and for sales, so that you can weed out people who are already customers just looking for support. Things like that you want to think about. Even time on site might indicate that someone is more serious than someone else. So propensity to buy and trying to make guesses around that, even try and go beyond that and do analysis to have a good, strong, educated guess on those things. So to me personally, Google Analytics is going to give you more to work with and a lot more options, and I think that's the place to be.
Great. I think this might be a great one for you, Sarah. What is the best advice you could give to a B2B company that's seasonal?
The best advice is adapt to the changes. So I think Dennis kind of hit on it earlier, is that around what you might see in this period is not necessarily going to reflect the type of engagement that you're going to see in other periods. So don't let things fall from the cracks. You might have to adjust bids significantly compared to other times of the year, and that's 100% normal. We want to capitalize on as much of that traffic as possible. So if you see things begin to spike a little bit, that's natural. Just remember to stay on top of those changes.
Okay, so Eddie from Virginia has sent in a great question, which is, how do I decide between mobile Facebook ads or Google ads?
Well, I think, again, going back to where do your customers spend their time, how do they do it, and then what is it you're trying to do with them? So from a Google ad standpoint, we have multiple different intent signals. So if you're doing multiple different campaigns, Sarah was talking about search, and we can do display and video. Each one of those has a different frame of mind when they're interacting, browsing or viewing something versus actually looking for something. And you want to include social in that as well, to think about what are the different influences on them, what sort of content matters more in those periods. And then as you think about the process, when they get to the point of trying to make a decision, what are the different experiences you can give them through your campaign? So I honestly think your customer is going to guide you in your marketing campaigns, and you'll want to optimize and add the mix to make that happen.
Yep.
Great. So West from Alabama is asking if we could expand a bit more on the concept of the right person, the right ad, the right time.
Sure, I'll take that one. So what we mean by the right person, the right ad, the right time is, as a business B2B marketer, you are trying to go after a specific target demographic, a perfect customer, if you will. We want to make sure that when that perfect customer is searching for the products or services that you provide, you're able to show them enough relevant content around your business when they're searching for it. So when we talk about the right person, the right ad, the right time, we mean your ideal customer who's searching for your product and services, and then us giving them the information that they're looking for as soon as possible.
I'll just add also, our products, they're automated and they use real-time signals. So that's another piece of this. Our bidding, the dynamic search ads that Sarah covered. And if you're doing those things, the moment that someone's doing something, based on the collective history that we've tracked over time with your customers and you, we can optimize on the fly as it's happening, and that's another piece about staying as pertinent and real to the moment for each user.
So IDA Agency has sent in a question, and they're asking, which pages do dynamic search ads have the best ROI for?
This is all dependent on your site and your products. We recommend starting off with the all web pages option, and then from there you can drill down to see how performance is trending. You can then segment out to different pages, whether it be product pages or whether it be unique pages that have form fill-outs. One thing I would recommend is, if there are blog pages on your website and some of that information may not necessarily be relevant to the ultimate conversion, you can also exclude some of these landing pages so that you can limit some of the traffic that you might not want to be targeting. And remember, you can add any negative lists on top of your dynamic search ads and look at the search terms that people are searching that trigger this ad and add those search terms as keywords in your other search campaigns.
Yeah, that's great advice. So Carrie from Virginia has asked, what strategies do you recommend for niche businesses where the search volume for relevant terms might be pretty low?
Excellent. You want to take that one?
Sure, I'll add to it.
Sure. So for niche businesses, and there's a lot in B2B, there is volume. And I'll just give an example, and I know I'll answer the question with it, but one customer I worked with in the industrial space, and there aren't many of these, sells airplane engines. And at one point they gave us the challenge of having to find people who buy airplane engines. And believe it or not, we actually found quite a bit of volume. It's relative to many other things, not as much, but it exists. Everyone's online doing different things. I think for niche, you want to look at all the related interactions. So in the case of the example I just gave, we started looking at what are their biggest events going on, and even some of them are online, and finding out people who go to certain conferences, people who are searching for these things, who are interacting, and also looking up different topics. And I think also just news, like those are some things that you can also engage with. So it takes reaching beyond maybe just the basic, I guess you could say, lower conversion funnel type events, and thinking a little bit earlier in that process of the sort of things that influence them. And then the other thing is the reach. So if search is one of the things that works well for you, you might want to also start to extend to the browsing behavior on display and video for content that people really care about in your specific niche industry. And those are all things that will help you get more volume.
Yep, great. Yep. The only quick thing I'll just add to that is, if it is something very niche, I also recommend thinking about the types of things that would cause someone to start looking for your solution or your business. So think about some of the challenges that they're currently facing in their business or with their own sort of solutions that they're running, and start targeting some of those and give them the solution when they're looking for it.
Yeah, and one last thing to add is, if you have a customer base that you've tracked and tagged and you have a list built of people who work with you, We have this other product, similar audiences, that can be used to build on that. So these are people who haven't yet transacted with you, but are doing behaviors very similar to the people who have done business with you. And you can extend your reach that way as well.
Yep.
Awesome. So our next question is from Christine, who is tuning in from not too far away in San Francisco. And Christine is asking, what effects of GDPR and data privacy regulations have you seen on the B2B marketing space, and especially in the tech and life sciences industry? So speaking of niche.
Very niche, yeah. So GDPR is a European phenomenon and policy that's building, and there are a lot of adjustments still being done there. So hasn't had as much of an impact at this point, unless your business is international, multinational. But focusing here in the US, it doesn't have an application directly. But however, privacy in general is something to be thinking about. And I think Apple's ITP, intelligent tracking prevention, is one thing to think about, and there's going to be other things that happen. And I think that as browsers make adjustments, you'll have to as well. Now, as far as impact goes, I think the thing that Sarah mentioned is that site-wide tagging is one way to control for this. You have the potential here, based on how you tag, to lose view of people who are converting. You'll still get the transactions, you'll get the conversions, you just won't know if whether your marketing worked. And that's why site-wide tagging is important. If you get the whole of your website tracking, and you can do it on a first-party basis, and all of the solutions that Sarah covered are first-party, they allow you to not be affected by some of the policies like ITP. And then you can actually have or maintain as much of that view of conversion value as possible post-click on an ad. And then the other thing is looking at what it does to your tracking of audiences for the purpose of remarketing and doing other things. And I think that's something that we're still learning, but there's a potential there that you could also lose sight of some of the people that would be on your remarketing list. And there might be some other solutions that will add to that. But for right now, it's about site-wide tagging, maintaining view of all conversions so that your marketing gets the appropriate credit.
Definitely.
Yep.
So Joe from Calgary has asked, what are the effective ways of using B2B e-commerce for selling services versus products?
Okay, I can take that one if you want to add to it.
Sure, yep.
There really is not much of a difference whether it's a service or it's a hard good that you're buying. I think the difference really is in the actions that you're valuing, right? Like it's probably a little easier on B2B commerce to see a transaction if you're doing it via your website. It gets more difficult slightly if you're trying to bring back in transactions that happened outside the website. But they can all be done. And so that's one piece on that side. On services, it's the same thing. You're probably looking at people wanting to call you if you're providing that, if they're submitting some information or requesting information from you by providing contact information. These are all things you can track, and you can all use all of these things by themselves or in combinations with other things, and then use those for building audiences, as we were discussing in a few of the questions, but then also for bidding. And you can optimize your automated bidding to include these interactions. And so lead gen to me versus commerce are not much different, other than you might have a longer window in which you're doing interactions with people before something happens.
Sure.
Yep. And I would just add that the messaging is key. So make sure that the messaging that you have within your exact ads and all the information that you're delivering is as best as possible. So again, it's not necessarily as much on the product as the service, because if you're trying to market a service, it's okay as long as we're just giving them as much information as possible and that it's tailored directly to them and to our business.
Yeah, I guess one thing to add to that also is that there has been a tendency with a lot of marketers who are very focused on transaction to send the lead form right away, even just make the entire landing page experience about the lead form. We were talking about mobile earlier and its role in influencing. Quite often we'll see people sending people from a mobile device directly to a lead form. They're probably not, in most cases, ready for that. You might want to think about what kinds of content, and that again is where Google Analytics does very well. It allows you to see things like bounce rate. So if on a mobile device you're sending people to the lead form and there's a really high bounce rate, it's a huge indication that you're not giving them the experience they want. So then try some other things. And you can do A/B testing on the same platform and figure out maybe they want certain kinds of content before they fill out that lead form. So just something else to think about.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dennis.
Yeah. So our last question of the day was sent in by Lola, and Lola is wondering, if my marketing budget is tight, where do you think it's best to invest? Creating a friendlier website or boosting on social media?
I think that really depends on what you're seeing and how your customers are engaging with you already. If what you're feeling is that there's a need to focus on the website, and as Dennis mentioned, the bounce rates are really high and we're not giving them the type of interaction that they'd hope for, I would recommend focusing on the website. But it's also important to say, if we're having trouble bringing people into the funnel, then maybe we need to expand our targeting elsewhere and go after some of these more social engagements. I think it really depends on what the customer is experiencing and where you're seeing these restrictions and the tightening come from, and then from there be able to diagnose where the best solution would be.
Yeah, and I just add, at all times, web browsing, on a browser, on a website, with an app, that's your experience that you're providing your customer that you wholly own and you can track. And I think that the level of interaction tracking that you can do with a website and an app, even both together, is going to give you a multitude of information that you can use in so many different ways. So I always say use that to your advantage, take advantage, use Google Analytics again to find out what it is your customers are doing, what they care about, where they come from, and then build your marketing campaigns around that.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for answering all of these questions. And thanks to all of you for tuning in from across North America. We're about to put up a slide that has our link to our feedback form. And so if you could submit that feedback at g.co/partnersconnectfeedback. Again, that's g.co/partnersconnectfeedback. We use all of the feedback that you give to continue building this program and giving you exactly what you're looking for. So we're gonna wrap up, and thank you again to Dennis and Sarah and to all of you for watching. And as a final reminder, the Google partners in the room are experts at all of the topics we've covered. You've kind of heard a lot of information today, and they can help you digest that and figure out exactly what recommendations were made that you could apply to your business. So be sure to ask them about setting up and implementing Google Ads campaigns. On behalf of all of our team here in Mountain View and the Google Partners team, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.